Why is my shirt ripped? Because we just got done talking about Stellaris Infinite Legacy. Let's talk about it. What does that even mean, Bauer's Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube. Welcome back for another Thoughts from the Corner special Kickstarter edition preview.
And today, we got a doozy here. We're going to be talking about Stellaris Infinite Legacy. This is an upcoming Kickstarter coming from Academy Games.
That's not the name of it, is it?
Yes, Stellaris Infinite Legacy.
Oh.
It's based on the Stellaris game from Paradox Entertainment. It's immensely popular 4X game, and this is going to be 2 to 4 players, 90 to 150 minutes to play, and this is what's called an Infinite Legacy game, which means it is going to be legacy in the fact that as you play the game, you're going to have a really concrete effect on the game, but not in a way that's going to destroy the game or ruin the game. And also, I want to mention this right from the jump, not in a way that makes it seem like you're never going to want to play it again. I got that impression, because we played Rise of Queensdale, which is my favorite legacy game of all time, but let's be honest, we don't want to revisit that.
Nope.
Same
well,
with,
I mean, maybe years down the road.
Once or twice.
Reprint it. I mean, there were other paths we could have taken.
But no, I mean, actually, we could still keep playing the game, but it would be...
like a continuation. No.
That's not what this one is going to be. Also, the other thing that I want to mention is it has this... There's so much to talk about here. Like, this game is absolutely exploding. So we have not played the game, but we sat down for about an hour and a half, and the designer of the game walked us through absolutely everything, which is just a staggering amount of stuff in this game. But it's going to be played over the course of 6 games. And generally over 6 or 7 games, your race is either going to succeed and be spectacular, or it's going to die off. But then they might come back later in play and in cards and in...
Yeah, it's like the echo of things that you've done can pop up in later games, and you can be like, oh yeah, that was that Dyson sphere we created.
So there's so much. We're going to be bouncing all around this thing. So let's just talk first and foremost about what they're really trying to go for here, which is streamline. They are trying to streamline the 4X game, which is quite... It's not easy.
No.
So the first thing I want to talk about, which really intrigued with me, and we're going to have pictures up for a bunch of this stuff, is this tray system they have, where each player is going to have their own unique tray where you are going to be doing your things, you're going to be managing your resources. It's going to go nicely back into the box with a cover that goes onto it, so you can go back to it from game to game to game, which is absolutely genius in my thoughts. And there's a screen as well, but it's not just a typical screen. Like, it's like, oh, look, don't look at my stuff screen. Yeah. It's actually going to have your race in there. Do you want to talk a little about...
So yeah, it's got these basically card sleeves in there that you're going to be putting your cards in there, and that tells your race, the selections that you've made, that you've created this race, because the race is unique to you. You can create your own every little aspect of it. Like, you just get a deck of cards, and apparently you can just choose, I want this and this and this. But there's certain things that you can't use at the same time, and normally that's really annoying in a game. But what they've done is, any of those options that you can have one of 2 options, it's on either end of the card. So you just flip the card over. So you literally can't accidentally choose something that you're not supposed to. Amazing. So you're going to have all your cards and stacked up, and you're going to have these events that you're doing, and it's going to keep track of those because those will be slid into the top of it. And all of your resource tokens are down in the bottom. So you can just see everything.
Okay, so I got to tell you what I thought was the coolest part, which I think was called the Pick 4. I think it was either Pick 4 or Pick 5 system, where you talk about creating your own race. Yeah. It essentially is, here's a huge list of perks you could have. But it's not just perks, because it's like, this perk is going to cost you 4 of your points, which means you also are going to have to put in some negatives potentially if you want to get that awesome purse. So you're going to be putting in negatives and positives to really create your own thing, in addition to the pre-standard ones, because if you play Twilight Imperium, and we probably should have mentioned that, like, it's one of our favorite games of all time. Yeah. Like, we have gone together on weekends just to play it together. We literally played it twice in a day.
Yes. Which, if you've ever played it, is a monumental feat.
So just the idea of creating your own, it's so nice. Yeah. But let's keep going on, because there's so much cool stuff to talk about here. The other thing I want to talk about now, and we're going to talk about the gameplay as well, but this has drop in, drop out functionality, and it doesn't sound like a giant pile of crap, because you could drop in and drop out, I believe, in Charterstone, but it was clunky. This one has kind of a cleaner system where, depending on how old your era is, because I mentioned you're probably going to play about 6 or 7 games with your race before you move on to another race. Well, you don't have to. Oh my God, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. There's so much going on in this game. So in that, You can drop it. So let's just say Jan decides to join us and she's Era 1, which means the victory conditions are going to be easier for her to achieve where we're on Era 4, because we're essentially going to have to do like 4 times the
it's like she only has to do one of the cards, and we have to do 4 of the cards because we're on Era 4.
Yes. And the other thing that I want to mention before I forget, because I think it's really cool, is they have a cool system in place to make it not so confrontational. Now, it's still going to be confrontational. This is a 4X game, but they have victory conditions where you're helping people out. Which, are you going to help out the level 4 person, or are you going to help out Jan over here? So it seems like it's a really nice sort of catch-up mechanism, and I just love the idea of drop in, drop out. Like, oh, Adam can't make it this week. We can still play it. He'll pop back up. We'll be Era 5. He'll be Era 3, but it's not a huge deal, which I think is really cool. The other thing is,
I think that's also super thematic, because you're going to have some races that are more advanced than others. And, that's what would happen if we found life out there somewhere. Like, we wouldn't be the top, we'd be at the bottom, and there'd be other ones to help us. I love that idea.
There's so much cool to talk about this. So the next thing I want to know about, we've all been in that game. We've all been in that game where it's like, oh, I'm going to lose this game. I'm going to get my face absolutely destroyed in this game. This one will let you say, oh, you're not happy with how things are going? You just re-roll a new character. It's like, but your old character's still in the game as like an AI, which makes sense realistically because there's all these different people in the galaxy, and that's such a cool idea. Okay, won't destroy pieces. Completely replayable. Non-linear, so it's a non-linear story, which he talked about a little bit, where just different events are going to happen. And when he said events, I was like, okay, how many events were we talking about? He said there was going to be like
500 event cards is what he said.
And
500.
And I want to, on this final notice, it is just double-sided of just all the things I scribbled. So there's something called that they're calling the key and lock system. I don't want to bury the lead here, but the key and lock system looks so cool. So that thing in games where it's like, oh, this card says if I can have this card over here and I can put them together, it'd be super amazing. You're like, that's never going to happen. But there's always that tantalizing taste that, oh, it could happen. This has hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of those. And as you progress through the game, as you level up, not your one tech tree, but also your tech tree and your tradition tree, and you're going to be leveling up your ships. You're going to start unlocking...
customizable ships.
Yes, customizable ships. There's so much in this game. And it all seems so streamlined. Focus.
Back to it. Get to the list.
Okay. But yes. Yeah, so there's a lock and key system. It looks amazing. So games equal an era, and when you win an era, you're going to get a reward, which will then go into the next game. There also is this really cool system that I like, where it really kind of, we haven't played it, but it feels like it's going to be cool with creating the galaxy, where as you explore, and we'll get more into how the 4X works in the game, because we're going to cover everything, hopefully. You don't actually start in a fixed position. Like, I start here, you start here. Here's the center of the galaxy. And if you happen, when you explore, if you happen to roll a certain number or below a certain number, then you'll start to get connected to the middle of the galaxy, which might not necessarily be bad. Now, it could be very bad.
And you get to choose where in that center that you can attach to.
Yes. I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, really awesome.
But that one does not stick from game to game to game, which I think is it doesn't make sense that much thematically, I don't think, but I think from a game design sense, if you were stuck right in the middle, that would suck. If you were like, yeah, I'm going to be stuck here for the next 5 turns, I'm going to re-roll. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I'm always right next to him. Our home worlds are touching each other.
All right.
That would be lame.
That would be. Let's talk about the big thing, the simultaneous play. We alluded a little bit to it, so how does that actually going to work? And it's really quite a clean system. There's going to be 4 things you're going to be doing. You're going to be exploring, which is where you're going to research check. And as you research check, you earn more tech to unlock. And I really like how that system works. So essentially, you'll start with this deck of cards. And then if you build the tech, it will say, hey, you now have this card and this card mixed into your tech deck that you could potentially get. So when it's simultaneous action, let's pretend me and Adam were playing. I would get to pick whether or not I want to explore, exploit, expand, or X-politics, which we'll talk a little bit later, but that's how they got rid of exterminate, because you're not going to exterminate every single turn, which makes sense. But you can still exterminate during that turn. So you would select one of those 4 you were doing, I would select one of those 4 I were doing, and you would grab this big board, like this big custom board. So it's like one of the 4 actions I want to do is going to be one of the 4 X's. I put it down in front of me, and it's going to have everything on there. It's like here, it's kind of almost worker placement-esque. It is worker placement, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you got your little tokens that you're putting on there.
Yeah. And it's going to say the resources you spend and the rewards you get. But when you flip over this big chunky board, It's a huge player aid specifically just for the Explorer, the Exploit, which I thought is such a good use of space. Like, I love a great player aid card, and that got me excited. But in a given round, you're going to do all 4 of those once. But you might be exploring while I'm exploiting, but then we might do the expand the next time at the same time. I thought it was a really clean system. I'm excited for that system, but I wanted to explain that a little bit. So exploring is how you're going to get your tech, and also it's how you're going to be expanding your board. You're going to colonize different planets, and there's a whole mining system. We're not even going to have time to get into the mining system, but it was really cool. Like, okay. So then we get to exploit. That's where you're going to build on planets, and you can build your own star base. You can build your own construction ship. And the ships, yeah, the ships are so cool. You're going to be able to completely customize your ships. You're going to be able to customize your tech trees. But then X-Politics. And this is where you're going to get to the action cards. And the action cards they're action cards. They do awesome action-y stuff. And it's just, right now I just feel like I'm telling you, hey, there's more stuff in this 4X game, but and I'm not even at the second half of the page. So I'm going to try. Can you give me like a filler minute?
So the action cards, it didn't seem like you were going to have a giant handful of action cards. It seemed like you were going to have like 3 or 4, maybe 5 tops. And so you're not like having this clunky, I don't know what to do because I have so many options here. It's like, and then you discard down to your hand limit, I believe. So yeah, that's the action card.
Oh, your government! You're going to choose your government at the beginning of the game. We totally forgot. So you're going to choose your character race, but then you're also going to choose your government, which is going to impact whether or not you're peaceful or whether or not you're
authoritarian or egalitarian.
Yes. So if you're, I have made a list that literally was like my top 10 Twilight Imperium race. It's like, so I love digging into the weeds and getting into the nuance, and this is going to let you do it. It's going to have really cool components. It's going to have this clip system where you're going to be putting it on your planets and keeping track of stuff. Puzzle piece connectors. That's really cool too. So if you're playing some games, it's like, bump the board, goes everywhere. It's annoying.
There's little spaces between stuff, and stuff gets dropped down in between the tiles.
This one is going to have this is such a small feature. Like, why don't you mention something more important? But I think it's cool. They got puzzle piece system where you're actually going to be able to put the pieces in there, so they're not going to just go everywhere. Which I just think, once again, it's just, you can tell the designer of this game loves 4X games. Like, all these, like, everything on here is just a little tiny little aspect. And when you put them all together, it's like, wow. Like, this game could really be a huge contender. Because they mentioned Twilight Imperium quite a few times. And they were like, all right, so the way we see it is, playing through a legacy of this is pretty much like playing a long game of Twilight Imperium. Because it's generally, you're going to play about 6 games if you really want to. And so what they tried to do was they tried to break down that experience more into 6 2-hour games to make it much more accessible. Like, when we get this, and we're doing a preview, so, and I didn't mention, this is a paid preview. Totally mentioned, I feel like that's obvious, but this seems like they had a game that you could get it out, and I don't know, it just has leg. I'm so excited about it. Okay, your workers, of course, they can also upgrade. You're going to have your special leaders, but eventually they will die as you use them more, so that it becomes...
That was very interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Well, they get super powerful, but then they're more likely to die because they're old.
They're wise. Trickling new mechanics on cards. Oh, that was the other thing, too. Oh, my gosh. So this is something I absolutely want to mention. They pretty much said that they didn't want to front-load people with mechanisms and iconography at the front, which I imagine they still will, but luckily you have 4 giant player references for every time you take the action.
Exactly what it's doing.
But the way they're going to introduce new mechanisms is by trickling in the cards, and it's going to be read the text on the cards pretty much, which I love when games do that, because it means, we can get up and going. It's like, what does this mean? Well, it's like, read the text on the card. And it's like, so I always like when they do that. We have events, we have anomalies you'll discover. The key and lock looks cool as hell. I just wrote that with
Yeah, it does. And also, when you're doing that key and lock, so like you might find the proper card that opens a certain that allows you to advance another card and do a special thing. But it might have an extra action at the bottom that if you are egalitarian, if you are you have a particular trait, you can do like a super action, basically, like a third different option than the 2 that are listed. And it was a lot of like, I don't know, to me it felt like the story was really driving what was going on there, because the event cards, it goes for, like you're basically doing an event, and then it goes on to the next step of it, and then the next step of it, and it's just like this tree of decisions that you've made, and you realize, when I made this decision 2 games ago, that's why this particular event is happening. This is why it's happening, and it's creating things in the world. It just sounded so amazing.
It really did. One thing I do want to mention, this is more of a back end kind of thing, but they are working with Paradox Entertainment. They have the full support of Paradox Entertainment, which I know means probably a lot to a lot of people. And in fact, they mentioned how a couple things were pulled straight from the game, like the character creation.
And I've never played Stellaris. I don't think you have either.
I tried it. I tried it for one night, and it was over my head. I can deal with I can deal with that in board games, but not
honestly,
so much.
Though, listening to this made me want to go and try the game.
I agree. I actually downloaded it again. So the other thing that I want to talk about, there's only like 3 or 4 more things that are super cool that I need to talk about. Combat seemed very simple and clean, which excites me. And they said they wanted combat to happen more consistently, because if you play Twilight Imperium, it's like, yeah, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. And it's like, all right, I'm gonna go grab a sandwich while you guys have this battle.
So combat's 1 round, and there are like 5 layers. I think it was like long range, mid range, short range, and then maybe 4 layers, and then rapid fire. And so you start at long range and you work your way forward, and whatever ships are at medium range, fire at medium range, and you hit the other person however close they are to you. And at the end of that, long range to rapid fire, whoever is damaged the most or dead the most retreats. So there's not a back and forth. There's not a continuous like, oh yeah, I rolled 10 dice and I didn't hit anything, and you rolled 10 dice and you didn't hit anything. All right, well, let's do it all again. That doesn't happen, and it's a one dice roll.
It seemed really clean and clear, and you got me excited about one
it
thing.
was
Keep going.
very, very interesting though. So you roll 1 die, and that's what determines like how much you hit, and like the defenses and stuff. Really, it sounded amazing. It sounded well thought out, and like someone that disliked sitting there and risk back and forth for 20 minutes to do 1 battle.
That's not hyperbole either.
Yeah.
Like, we've had combats like that. But you actually, I did the excited hand clap, because you got me remembering the thing, which was that getting destroyed isn't necessarily the end of the world, because you have a very finite amount of resources that you can spend. And they actually have a really cool resource system where it's not you spend the resources, but you flip it over to say that it's exhausted and tapped, which I like. I like that a lot. So let's say you have like this huge ship, but that huge ship is going to take one of a particular resource over and over and over every single turn. But if it gets destroyed, then you get that resource back every turn, so you can allocate it to a different location. And it just makes freaking sense, and I liked it. All right. Anything else we've got to get into? I'm looking. Oh, the 4th game. Yeah. So every 4th game, it throws it up and it turns it into like a semi-cooperative affair, as you're going to be dealing with a galactic crisis. And it's like, that you don't need that in the game. That's completely unnecessary. But that's awesome. Like, it's like there's more stuff in there.
It reminds me of Game of Thrones, like when the wildlings attack.
Yeah.
It's like. And there were so many times while they were talking about this that I thought of other games that it's like, oh yeah, that part that I really like about that game, that's what he's talking about right now.
I also wrote down that Crisis Evolve, which sounds awesome, and I don't even remember what that means. Does that make any sense? Crisis Evolve.
I think when after it happens the first time, like you might change it in a certain way
based on
that
what
the
happens.
next time it comes. Yeah, the next time it comes up, it might be a little bit different.
And so I just want to give you one example that we kind of got a glimpse which was like, it was an event that happened where it was like, oh, do you want to send out a message beacon to this person? It's going to cost you some, but it might potentially do good. And depending on what you do, if you get a card later in the game, and it might be next game, it might be 2 or 3 games down the line, it'll be like, oh yeah, you finally got that radio transmission back from them, and X, Y, and Z is happening. And it's just, as a gamer, that excites me so much, because that's the kind of stuff that normally we only see frequently in video games, because it's just hard logistically to do in board games. But I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I am super excited.
Do you think it's going to be shirt ripping good?
I'm a little hesitant on how the system where it's like one person's going to come in, like the drop in, drop out. Yeah, so if that turns out to be as good as they're making it sound like it is, then yeah, this is going to be shirt ripping good. It might replace our Twilight Imperium, regular.
that was
You
fail.
just ruined that shirt.
Well, the shirt was to be. I just need to take this Bosun's Edge blade, give it a little cutsy. But yeah, this is coming to Kickstarter very, very soon. And actually, they gave me a Kickstarter link down below, and if you click on it, I get like shirt
Yeah!
I think it'll be. I don't know. I haven't played it yet, but it looks. There's shirt in my mouth. It looks shirt ripping good. So, if that looks like it might be your cup of tea, be sure to check that one out down on the Kickstarter link down below, or just on any Kickstarter link. I really don't care. I just love seeing more epic 4X meaty space games out there, because if you play this, you might be, well, anywho. Looks like it might be sure to check that one out. Also, if you're enjoying what we're doing, after my hands, click on that subscribe button down below, as I'm trying to reach 9,000 subscribers, celebrate my 9-year anniversary of making YouTube content. As always, thanks for your time, YouTube. I gotta work on the shirt ripping.
What do you got?
All right.